Hello, everybody. So it's been a while, obviously, a long while. There's some interesting things that are going to be developing, and I will be making more and more of an appearance, and hopefully changing up the subject matter, or at least the style of which this channel operates under. But before we begin, I wanted to drop this little thing off in the mail, so to speak, because the election happened, Trump is in charge, and everyone's freaking out. Now, what I think is funny is Canadians are all like just as freaked out about this as Americans, but Canadians did this, year and a half ago, but we got Trudeau, you guys got Trump. So, ironic that both cancer countries are, um, both cancer countries both got a T, Trudeau, Trump, TR, Um, Anyways, what I really want to get into with this segment and this piece, and the reason why I'm bringing up the election, is America, you guys have basically brought this on yourselves. There's no blaming anybody around you. There's no blaming, your neighbor. There's no blaming the racist. There's no blaming the bigot. There's no blaming the gay person. There's no blaming the person getting an abortion. There's no one to blame except each and every individual American. Because each and every individual American for the last 20-something years has allowed things like drama to be dropped from curriculum. Education has suffered severely for over 20 years. And in place of education, we decided to try something called a PC liberalism, politically correct liberalism, which the millennials have now gone completely fucking mad over because, things like not identifying as male as female, simply identifying as a they, but a they doesn't imply a singular, it implies a plural, so I don't understand how you cannot identify as a male or a female, but identify as a they, because being a they means he and she, they would be a sexual, double, couple, whatever. But more to the point, let's talk about how the fact that, everyone's screaming about the racists and the bigots, and, the most liberal thing I've heard all from what I've been reading is a North Carolina KKK dude being like, we don't want to cause no violence. We don't want no violence. We just want to live like white people should. We should want to live in segregation. We don't want no violence. We don't want to hurt nobody. We just want to live like white people should, separate from other races. That's what we want to do. Okay, you know what? That's great. You want to separate yourself. You want to be white, white only over here. It doesn't look good, but if you're not going to promote violence, then go for it. Do it. Have fun, but understand that you still pay the same taxes that, the people that you don't like because of the, and the unavailable ability to change the color of your skin tone also need, for you to pay into, which are called taxes and other shit that people, when you're living in a state, in a country, in a city and all that, and you're working and you're an American citizen, that's what you still have to pay into, and that, you're not getting away with that. But more to the point though is how everybody's freaking out, and it's, what is the date today? Maybe the 11th, maybe the 12th. I don't even know what the date is, but, whatever, everybody's freaking out. And what I really want to get to here is, when you freak out, you do something that you don't understand, because America has been creating the Trump issue for 20-something years. If Matt Groening from The Simpsons, predicted this 15, 16 years ago, and he's an artist who's more aligned with what's coming because of the fact that they're open to a different avenue of thinking than the normal person, well, then the American unconscious, the mass unconscious, has basically said that we need this. And the thing that you need is to look at all of the wounds that you guys have, because all of you people who are out there protesting, well, I understand that you're afraid that he's going to do this, and he's going to do this, and blah, 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 point the finger, blame, 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 point the finger, blame, blame, blame. Nothing has happened yet. The man hasn't taken office. Sure, I get some of the upset, I get it, but when you try to marginalize people, even the worst kind of people, such as what you want to call a bigot or a racist, or those people, when you marginalize people and you tell them that they have to do it or else, you're basically doing PC liberalism in a way that we call religion. Because religion says, here is the way in which you were supposed to exist. Here is the way in which society will like you if you exist within this function. Seventh-day Adventists, they dump their kids for being gay. You know, because that's their little thing. PC liberalism says, well, if you're a racist, then we don't want you in our world. We don't like you. We don't... Well, that's called shunning in religion. And on and on. Like, if you start to see what I'm saying, political correctness and basically created Trump. Because people have felt like, I don't have a voice. I don't feel, you know, that I can say what's on my mind. I can't do this, blah, 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 blah. Why? Because we're all supposed to be this perfect person. This person who doesn't have the feelings of anger, doesn't have the feelings of, you know, fear, jealousy, da-da-da-da-da. That's what created Trump. Now what you're creating on top of that is, oh my God, I'm gonna be like burned at the stake. Oh my God, my neighbors are gonna kill me. Oh my God, the purge is coming. That's what Americans are doing right now. They're freaking out over nothing. Nothing has happened. Yes, I wholeheartedly agree that, you know, Donald Trump's, you know, pick of cabinet people like, you know, Prentice for his whatever the fuck, his vice president, and then you've got, you know, the troll from New Jersey, and then you've got Palin from Alaska, you know. But what you have is a bunch of people that are angry. Now, a lot of these people are kind of also psycho-religious, which really doesn't help, but this is why the church and state have to be separated. This is where you, the liberal people, need to focus your anger towards, not so much, you know, whether or not Trump is getting into power, because already that's been done. Trump's already in. So what I would suggest, America, is instead of creating more shit, which you've been doing for 20 years, which brought about Trump, maybe you might want to focus on yourselves. Maybe you want to focus on why you're so scared. What do you think somebody can take away from you? Because truthfully, that's what you're all worried about. You're all of a sudden worried that your rights and all these things are going to be taken away from you. But if you don't focus on that as an external value, but as an internal value, then how do you lose your rights as a human being if you own them? You know, like, this is where Americans need to look at what their fears are right now, and they need to recognize that their fears are an external voice to their internal problems, and they need to look at the internal problems to solve the external problems, because so long as you're putting out there fear, wow, you're creating fear. You begin to live in fear. Now, America, you've been bought and paid for by fear. 9/11, Muslims, Islam, beheadings, you know. I watched Dave Chappelle on Saturday Night Live yesterday, and Dave Chappelle's the only person who was able to say that, hey, guess what? You know, the dude that killed all those people in Orlando, well, he wasn't actually a part of ISIS. He screamed out, you know, hail ISIS or whatever the hell on the phone to a 911 operator, the one and only time in his life. But you know what, America? You believe that he was a terrorist. Again, he wasn't. Dave Chappelle, however, was the only person I've heard in the media who's public and large and famous exemplify that exact truth. And so you guys buy into fear. You continually feed on fear. And now that Trump is coming to power, you're creating and eating and feeding and creating and puking and shitting and living fear. That's the only thing you guys are doing. And that's why America is going, right? Because you're not dealing with these issues. I mean, like I've said before, the Boston riots came and your black president swept up all the social issues under the rug within 2 days. Within 2 days, President Obama didn't want to talk about the Boston riots, didn't want to talk about any of it, didn't want to talk about the lack of funding for social programs, didn't want to talk about all the reasons the Boston riots happened, didn't want to address any of them. So this supposed hero won't even address some of the problems of Americans that were screaming at the Boston riots. And the Boston riots were, what, 3 years ago? And now you have Trump, but I'm not sure how you were surprised, because Boston riots, poor people are mad, poor people are angry, poor people are destroying things. Those poor people also had to happen to have a skin pigment. But it wasn't their fault because they weren't heard, right? And they hadn't been heard, and so they were angry. And whoops, what happened with this election? All the angry people who felt marginalized and unheard, they all went, hey, fuck the political bullshit like Clinton and Obama and all these people that don't listen to us are literally just, doing what is necessary for companies like Monsanto, for the war machine, for all this shit, who are, President Obama killed more civilians using drones than any other president before him, kind of amount of blood on his hands, and yet Americans don't care about that because what your brother over here isn't doing isn't your problem. You need to figure out why, how many millions of Americans feel so wounded and hurt inside from not being recognized, not being, a part of, and, start getting your answers there, because that's why Trump exists. Trump exists because you've hurt each other. You continually hurt each other. The guy shot up Orlando nightclub because he was continually hurt by other gay people. So what you have is a lot of people just hurting each other, and then now that they're hurting each other and they finally said, hey, here's our fucking wound, and his name is Trump, well, now you know what's going on. So I'm going to leave you with that. Here's my handy dandy little thing. And I'm going to say goodbye. I love you. And please stay tuned because it will be changing. Things will be getting more interesting. And I guess that's it for me. That's 12 minutes of rambling. But hey, that's a good ramble. It's the first one in a long time. Love you. Keep your light going. And remember, fix yourself because the rest of the world isn't going to change. But if you change, then you change the world.